So you want to know the ins and outs of managing your money. Well, lucky for you, you're just in time for another episode of Master Your Finances with certified financial planner professional Kurtis Baker. Kurt and his panel of experts are here for you and will cover topics from a legal and personal standpoint. They'll discuss tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University. Now, let's learn how we can better change our habits with Kurtis Baker.
Do you want to know which businesses are now classified as non-banking financial institutions and must comply with FTC safeguards by June 9th deadline? Do you realize how critical it is to manage and mitigate cyber risk, especially in today's increasingly digital landscape? Bob Michie, president and co-founder of MetroMSP, defines technology strategy and initiatives as critical aspects to clients' success. Bob is here to provide you with access to an FTC compliance checklist that you can use to ensure your company is meeting the necessary standards for protecting sensitive information, as well as help you understand the potential consequences of failing to comply with these regulations and the importance of taking action to protect your businesses. Today, he will help you feel confident, knowing your business operations are secure, and that you have done necessary steps to mitigate cyber risk and comply with important regulatory requirements. Now, the requirements are really important, obviously, but I know that cyber risk just in general, I know I went to a workshop just a few months ago, and they talked about how cyber risk is on the rise and how insurance rates are going up for cyber risk are on the rise. And insurance companies are actually getting more proactive about, hey, you really need to be in compliance and do all these things. So this is like a real threat. This is not, and it doesn't matter if you're Fortune 500 or you're a two-person operation, everybody has risk. That's kind of the message that was given to us. And so everybody's like, uh-oh.
Absolutely. Everyone's been sitting at home during COVID, and so are the bad guys. And
they've been working too, huh?
They've been working. Cyber attacks are way up with what's been going on. And as far as insurance goes, before COVID, you could get a cyber insurance policy, and they typically ask you 3 or 4 questions, maybe 5 questions, and they could write a policy. Now it's 8 to 10 pages of questions, and at the end of it, it says the question that says, "Did you get your cybersecurity guys to help you fill out this form?" Because no one understands the questions anymore,
right?
And insurance just doesn't want to pay,
right? And if you're a small operation, they're going to say, "Well, send it to your cybersecurity department," and you're like looking around, like. And, what department?
And what we're seeing in some cases, right. the company isn't even getting the app. The insurance agent might be filling out the app, checking off the boxes. Uh-oh. And yeah, it is an because if the company has a data breach? What do you think the first thing they're going to pull out and look at?
Check the application and make sure you had done everything you said you did on the application, which it sounds like you might have missed.
There's an insurance company in litigation right now that wants to pull back $1 million contract because the box that was checked on the form didn't match what they were doing.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the importance of always making sure you're telling the truth on an insurance application, regardless of what it is, because the first thing that an insurance company does when there's a claim is they go back to the original application and they make sure that everything that you said was in existence, because that's how they underwrite it. If you don't tell them the truth about how you underwrite, then they have a hard time offsetting that potential risk. That doesn't mean they'll deny you for not doing something. They're either going to help you fix it, or they're going to, they're going to give you another type of policy possibly, right?
Right, but in this case, what's happening is the questions that are coming out, people don't understand what they're actually asking.
Right, and it's technology now. So now we're getting into a language that most of us don't really speak.
Right.
So if they're asking you, have you implemented X, Y, Z, you may not even, they might be talking Latin, right? I don't speak Latin,
one of the questions they might ask is all your customer data encrypted at rest?
Okay.
And people are like, I don't know.
Oh, right. So
they're saying my web guy does it or my IT guy does it. Well, okay, but we have to prove it.
Okay.
So that's, it's just one of the simple questions that everything needs, in that case, the laptops and the computers that the data's sitting on needs to be encrypted.
Right. So you want to encrypt, you can actually encrypt the hard drive itself, not just put it on the hard drive and say, well, I have a firewall, I'm good to go.
Exactly.
You have to actually encrypt the data as it sits there, as you point out, which is really kind of important. So if you want to just, because we talked about this June 9th deadline, which is really just around the corner as far as companies are concerned. It's like tomorrow. So why don't we talk about what exactly that means and what people should be doing now to maybe make sure that they're ready for this new. So June 9th
rule is actually the extended deadline. The original deadline was December 22, and people didn't even know that they had to comply. Turns out, everyone's got different compliance organizations that they need to work with, and in this case, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has created and expanded a definition that they called non-banking financial institutions. It's their way of protecting consumer information, and then it's basically anybody that touches tax returns, or wires or is holding wire information for consumers. Because when you go through the FTC reg, it calls out car dealerships right at the start because of all the leasing aspects. People I've talked to tell me car dealerships are really a bank that use cars as a vehicle to make money.
So it sounds to me like it's not just, the typical ones I would think of is like a mortgage company or, a finance company, or something like that. But you're talking about anybody who has your financial information, which could be somebody who actually helps you facilitate a loan, not necessarily holding your assets.
Absolutely. So like you said, a mortgage company,
right.
A real estate office could have some of that information, and then in the reg it even calls out a property appraiser, which you think, well, what it's going deeper and deeper as to.
Because they have pretty limited information on your finances. Right. They don't know about your house or your piece of real estate you're buying, but how much they don't really have financial information on me.
I know, but it actually calls them out by name.
I wonder why that is. Any theories on that?
It's just they're part of that whole data stream. And here's the thing: if the property appraiser gets compromised, and the appraiser sends information back to the title agency or the bank, that's another entry point. So it's using that other person's trust. So it's really having to vet all the vendors that are part of the transaction.
Well, maybe they don't want. Well, I'm thinking of another angle. Maybe it's that because years ago they had issues with appraisals being inflated or wrong. So what if somebody has access or able to breach the appraiser system? They could then put fraudulent appraisals in, which means that another person could actually lend money at a much higher level than they should have. And now you end up with what we had back in the 2008, where people were upside down on mortgages because the appraisals were too high and they weren't correct. I'm theorizing here.
Yeah, exactly. But we can guess all day.
It affects the financial transaction in some way, and affects your financial life in some way. Is what it sounds like. It's a very broad brush.
But the very last definition that they have in there for the when they're talking about the actual companies, they actually define something called a finder.
Okay.
A finder is an individual. Could be somebody at a networking group that you met. Maybe somebody that's looking for a mortgage, and you make a referral to somebody.
Okay.
You're not part of the transaction.
No, I just said, Susie, go talk to Tom.
You're not going to get compromised or know any information about that.
Right.
Compensated, rather. You're not going to know any information about that. You're still classified as a finder in that definition. I don't know how it's going to get enforced, but it really goes down.
I'm not sure what encrypted and what information I'm supposed to be protecting for that transaction.
Exactly. But it's really for your business to really protect everything that you're doing. And
so even if it's not part of my business, if I'm sending like at a chamber event, if I'm referring people to other people,
by the definition,
I have to have my data encrypted, even though none of my data is part of this interaction that we're having.
Yeah,
none of it, other than my name, maybe.
It's going to be a hard one to really pursue, but there's actually real monetary fines for data breaches now.
Okay, so all right, so obviously there's the stick involved here. So
there's a big stick.
There's a really big stick. So what do we know so far about what all this means? Now, what should I be doing as a small business? The bigger businesses, hopefully they're paying attention. If they're not, they better get on the board because they have like no time. Even smaller business, what should we all be kind of doing now to see if we're in compliance, or what kind of the first steps?
So there's 9 steps that the FTC defined for businesses that have access to over 6,000 records. And that's actually another definition to really look at, because it's not necessarily 6,000 of your records. Because if you're a service provider and you're a bookkeeper and you've got access to a bunch of client records, all those records add up as stuff that you can add to. So we really tell people to, there is an exemption in the in what needs to be done. So there's 9 steps of things that people have to do today.
Okay.
And the exemption takes some of them away, but I can't do the rest of them without doing everything.
Okay.
So, everything for a small business really starts with the cybersecurity risk assessment. Let's understand where the data is before we can protect it.
Right. Which, of course, everybody should be worried about cybersecurity anyway, regardless of the regulation, because it is a real threat. You don't want to get locked out of your own data. You don't want people breaching your own data and messing with it, because that'll create a big mess. Because most of us hold a lot of information there, which can affect us, right? So, all right. So what we should probably do is kind of go through each of these steps, right? And maybe walk through like what we need to do. But before we get into that, why don't we just take a quick break right now? You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm here with Bob Michie, and we're talking about cyber security and a June 9th deadline and the 9 steps that we should be taking that the federal government has put out. The FTC is saying that we need to take care of to be in compliance. So you want to give us an idea of like what these things are that we should be doing and how we should be doing it?
Sure, we can certainly run through some of these, and there's a lot of detail in the FTC regulation itself. But one of the main things to really start looking at is we mentioned a minute ago is the cybersecurity risk assessment. You need to assess where your data is, how it's protected, and what vulnerabilities there exist. And the FTC regulation actually says you need to have a qualified individual do that. It doesn't specify specific qualifications or certifications that it needs to have, but it's not something that you're going to be giving to the secretary in the office and say you're now our qualified individual.
You just can't bless somebody in the office and say you're our qualified person for this activity, because that may be. So you have to say you did at least some kind of due diligence about who this qualified person was, like they had something,
right?
And they don't define it though.
And that's the thing. I actually was on a call with the FTC, with the attorney at the FTC that wrote it, and they said no, we didn't put a specific qualification in. Is that you don't have to have a CISSP or any specific security certifications, but you have to be qualified you have to have somebody qualified looking at it, and they left it very vague.
Okay. All right.
But
so,
as long as companies are going through that process, you could do it with a third party. You can have a third party be your qualified individual. You don't have to hire them on staff. Mm-hmm. But that qualified the third party is going to have to be working with somebody of appropriate authority at the firm or practice to actually implement change.
Okay.
When it ultimately comes down to it.
All right. So you need a qualified person, not defined, but it has to be a qualified person that basically somebody that knows what they're talking about, knows what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you start off with a cyber risk assessment, which is kind of where most baselines count. Now you sound like you're my profession, right? Let's talk about the basics.
Exactly.
Where are we at now? So you want to make sure, okay, what do we know? What are the big holes? What things are in good shape? And how do we fix it, right?
Right.
So that's the baseline. So you start off with a risk assessment. And then where do we go from there?
And then we go from there. We're going to find stuff. We're definitely going to find stuff in the risk assessment, and the FTC regulations actually pull some stuff out. And just like the insurance companies are asking about multi-factor authentication now, the FTC is saying it's got to be there. So they actually dropped the multi-factor authentication as one of the requirements. As it's not dropped it, but it's listed there as you must do it.
Oh, you must do the multi-factor authentication. Because I have noticed, especially in the last year, that everybody was kind of delaying. And some of them I was kind of surprised. Some fairly large entities were not doing the multi-factor authentication, which I just kind of thought was like, why not, right? But I know there's technology behind it. But I feel like everybody that I'm aware of that has anything to do with this data personally seems to have this in place now.
They do.
At least who I'm dealing with. So.
But what we're still seeing is a lot of smaller companies are not enforcing it for some of the most critical things like email.
Okay, that's true, and they do let you. Yeah, it's true. Like they'll have it, but that you don't have to necessarily opt into it.
Right.
That's also true, actually.
So now, in the near future, in the next couple months, Microsoft's going to mandate it on the Office 365 platform.
Okay.
It's not going to be an option to not use it.
Okay.
Because it's just once the bad guys get into an email account,
they can go anywhere.
They can go anywhere. They get get access to everything that's in that environment. So
you use the email for a lot of things, right? That's how you validate. That's how you get that's how you get authenticated. Sometimes you can send out a second step by going to the email address.
You can go to the email address, and that's why we recommend that email and text messages aren't the method of authentication.
Okay.
If possible, use an app-based authentication on your phone because it's a lot harder to replicate.
Okay, so use those authenticator apps that we have on our phones
Absolutely.
that not everybody's using. So I know you can choose. So what you're telling us now is forget the email, forget the text messaging, which I was it's interesting. I was surprised the first time I heard it that they can defeat texting to your phone, which I thought was kind of interesting. I think they can work around it somehow, apparently. So
there's a couple different ways, but there's a video that was done for a TV station where someone pulled up YouTube of a baby crying in the background, then called up the mobile phone company and had the phone moved to a different physical handset.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
They social engineered the cellular provider. Here's my new phone.
Okay.
I don't have the information, but here, move it over. And
they did it?
And they did it. They had the woman was very, very convincing. She had a YouTube video playing in the background of a baby crying.
Oh, so they were feeling sorry for her?
They were feeling sorry for her, and she had her script right down. And most of these attacks that we're seeing are all social engineering or email.
Okay, so there's a human factor still involved in these breaches to a large amount, right? That's my understanding, at least.
And that leads right into the next requirement.
Okay.
Of having security awareness training.
Okay.
For your staff. Train your staff.
Okay.
No matter how big or how smart you think they are, we need to constantly remind people of breaches that can happen and things to look for. I got a call last week of somebody that had been trained. He got a pop-up on his computer that said, your computer's infected, call Microsoft for help. Well, he knew better than to call the number that they were giving them there.
Right.
However, he pulled out his cell phone and Googled Microsoft support and called a different set of bad guys.
Okay.
And proceeded to let them on his computer.
Yeah, I actually heard having a family member of mine where they did it with Best Buy, where they looked it up online, Google searched, Best Buy helpline, and sure enough, the number comes and it looks authentic.
Thank you for calling Microsoft.
And they just call up and they answer the phone and they go into your computer, and then I think it took about 3 or 4 days at least for them to get the computer back online again. It was a mess, total mess.
So in this case, it was. It was a minor incident for him. It was only $700 or $800 worth of Amazon purchases that happened because they let him on his computer.
Oh, goodness.
Before it got shut down. But getting that Amazon account back was painful.
So that's an important thing to realize, is that just by looking it up online, you're not necessarily going to get the real number. You need to find it from another source, right? Yep. Which is hard to do. So you have to find it from a known source for sure. You got to make sure it's a known source.
Yeah, we all, most of us know that Microsoft doesn't do end user support directly,
right?
And I'm not sure where he got it, but the ironic thing thinking about this is one guy got the pop up on the computer, and somebody else got the actual phone call. So who got the commission?
Oh, right. Think they work together in the background? I don't know. You could co-commission that thing. So, not good. So they're pretty smart out there, I think, is the bottom line. So we have to be careful with what you're doing and how you're doing it, using known sources, right? Using things that you already have in your hands that you already know how to get a hold of it. Keep track of that stuff, right?
Keep track of it, and go to the actual URLs that you should be going to, and
right.
And the safety tip there is if there's sites that you go to a lot, bookmark them because it is so simple to type in the wrong URL.
Right, and they do buy those.
They buy all the lookalikes.
The one digit off kind of URLs things because they know how people make typing mistakes all the time. So once you get that down. So, so you want to make sure that you're paying attention. Now, when you go through this, and it sounds to me like this person was pretty smart, but I know that a lot of people say that even though they do the training, they have to do ongoing, basically pop quizzes kind of thing, right?
Yep.
So you don't want to just say, oh, I've trained my people, they're good to go, because we're human beings, and a week later they're back to work again, and the same habits are going to go back into place. So you part of this process is to every once in a while kind of send them one of these things and see how they respond. Do they actually stop and think about it, or do they click on it and now you're in trouble?
And that's definitely something that needs to be done. It's actually called phishing test emails. We'll send out.
Okay.
And if you answer the question back to the insurance policy, the insurance application, I've seen it where the insurance application asked if you were doing phishing simulation emails.
Right.
And then if you say yes, they want to know this. They want to know the click-through rates.
Oh.
They want to know. They want to know stats of, how successful is this, and are people clicking on it? Everything is going into underwriting these days.
So even those tests. So how often do they expect you to kind of do these tests?
The applications didn't say anything specific about the tests. We like to do them at least quarterly.
Okay.
And we'll send them out over the course of a quarter, probably different ones to different users. And if I want to, I can typically get a phishing email clicked on in about a week at a company.
Okay.
Because I actually will send out 3 different ones.
Right.
And they all lead up and stack on each other. And by the time people get to the third one, like, oh, this is important, I'm going to click on it.
Oh, okay.
So I will social engineer the phishing emails in some cases because, like I said, 80% of the time we can get somebody to click on an email.
Because I'll figure if it keeps coming back, then, this must have been actually something that's legit. It wasn't a one-off kind of deal.
Well, actually, what I'm talking about, I actually changed it. The first one, I'll send out a message that says you're out of space on your Apple on your Apple account.
Okay.
And then the next day, I'll actually send a fake message. I'll send out a fake message that says your Apple account's been updated. The new subscription cost is X.
Okay.
And people are like, oh, I'm not spending money. I got to cancel this.
Okay.
So they click.
Oh, so they're concerned about it. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty incredible. And then what's the third one, real quick?
The third one is around Christmas. We'll include FedEx messages.
Okay. All right. So basically vary it and see what people are going to do on that. So that's awesome. I mean, we've got a lot more things to go through, but we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurtis Baker, certified financial planner professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm here with Bob Michie, and we're talking cybersecurity and the 9 steps, the things that you should be doing to get ready for June 9th, which is right around the corner, which is an extended date. So those of you who didn't know about the date, you already missed the first deadline. You just got lucky that now you know there is a deadline. So it's time to really get basically serious about cybersecurity, not just because it's a good thing to do, but also because the FTC is going to start watching and having large penalties if we don't do the right thing. There's another aspect of this which we don't want to really have to deal with, frankly. So we got the parts that we did now, which are really you want to set up your cybersecurity risk assessment, and then you have to start bookmarking sites, making known sites, and be careful when you call these numbers out of the emails, and setting up some type of testing system where you know that the employees are kind of paying attention to these emails that are coming in, so they don't accidentally give the bad actors, so to speak, access to your systems. Once they get the emails, then they can get a lot of stuff, and that's a really bad one. So after those, what are some of the other things that we should be doing? So
just to continue on from the training aspect, I actually lump employee training and monitoring together.
Okay.
And monitoring is much more than what the individuals doing. It's
Okay.
really watching what that computer or app or system is doing.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of, when the bad guys are getting into systems, they're setting up stuff for these systems. They're setting up persistent threats so that these systems are calling home to go let the bad guys in the future to do stuff.
This sounds like ET. Gonna phone home here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So depending on
All right.
depending on what report you look at,
Okay.
It could be 100 to 200 days that the bad guys are sitting there going around looking at systems before people even.
So
know.
let me make sure. So what they're doing is they're getting access to your computer, and the computer is now talking to the bad actors, and then the bad actors figure out when's the optimal time to actually kind of take it. This sounds a little bit like what happened to Sony, where they were in the system for a long time before they actually found out what was going on, and then they started threatening with all this stuff that we're going to reveal all this information.
Well, during that time that they're actually on the system, they're actually extracting data and looking at it. We've seen incidents where the bad guys have asked for the exact amount of cybersecurity insurance or the exact bank account balance because they're watching and they know and they're finding everything. So that really means that there's additional monitoring that's got to happen from a cyber perspective versus just buying antivirus and assuming that it's going to catch everything. And these are real people that actually, we actually use a real cyber team to actually monitor what's going on. We are using AI to review some of that stuff and then send it to a real set of eyes to know what's going on.
My understanding is like the cyber, not the cybersecurity, but the antivirus thing is kind of more of a reactive. Like if it gets in the system, now we're going to try to get rid of it. But this is more of a proactive thing where let's try to stop this stuff as fast as we can once it gets there. It's a little bit different as far as the way it works, right?
Right. Most of the antivirus tools out there, you actually get downloaded signatures, what they call signatures, which are it's looking for known threats.
Right.
So if it's seen it before, the antivirus can prevent it.
Okay.
The stuff I'm talking about, the persistent threats, are these applications that are calling home to new command and control systems that are sitting out there that the bad guys are going after. In fact, we won't get the topic for another call would be a recent FBI operation that was called the Operation Cookie Monster. They took down the bad guys.
Oh, I like that part.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Okay.
But the monitoring piece really is a third party process for what's going on because nobody's going to build these systems up, build a 24/7 center for people to monitor. So that's one of the things that we take care of. The part of back to the FTC list is it actually spells out you need to create a written incident response plan. Now, a written incident response plan really is documentation about what you're going to do when a breach happens. Not if it happens, but when it happens.
Okay.
Who are you going to call? Do you have that list of data available? Because we recommend everybody have cybersecurity insurance.
Okay.
It's just good business practice today. And the cyber insurance companies are going to want to get involved right at the start and help manage this breach.
Okay.
If there is a breach, they're going to help you determine if there is, that's called that would lead to an incident response team being assigned from the insurance agency.
Oh wow!
Typically,
okay.
Because if someone gets a data breach, and they call their IT guy and say, "Oh, my computer's compromised. Put it back the way it was." They've just destroyed evidence in today's environment.
Okay.
So we've just corrupted a crime scene, or made a crime scene go away, and in that case, the insurance company might not even acknowledge the threat, might not even pay.
Is this where what I hear digital footprint? Is that where that gets involved?
That's part of it.
You can kind of see like how they got to that point. I guess you can kind of back into and maybe find these bad actors somehow. Is that what you're trying to do?
I don't know that we're going to find the bad actors, but we want to find out what they accessed. So we talked a little earlier about email being compromised.
Right.
So we worked with somebody that had his email compromised, where the bad guys were in his email and resent invoices after he sent them with different routing information, so he didn't get paid.
Okay.
So that person notified the insurance company. The insurance company assigned a cyber team to a breach response team. It was $35,000 of investigation and forensics.
Wow.
To figure out what these bad guys accessed.
Okay.
Because when the bad guys are in your account, we have to assume every single email that are sitting there right now, the bad guys read.
Wow. That could be a lot of emails.
There's nothing confidential in your email, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. So that's so I guess on the email side, I don't know, because I know a lot of the industries now are going to like encrypted emails themselves. Like the email itself is encrypted. So does that aspect assist with this process, or is that?
If it's sitting in your email account, no.
Okay.
Because they're accessing those emails just as if they were you.
Okay. So the end-to-end, it's only going to do it while it's in transit. But if you have if the actual account itself is something is an encrypted email account, which is another step, right? So it's a little bit different, right?
Some of the encrypted emails, yes. There could be a platform just for sending this one-off message, and it's not being saved as a sent item in your email.
Okay.
Because that's where they're looking at your sent items, they're looking at stuff that's coming in.
Okay.
And when they get in your email, sometimes they'll actually create rules so that you don't even see responses coming in.
Okay.
So if in this case the person was sending back emails from his client, and they were getting redirected to a different folder, he never saw them.
Oh wow, that's not good.
So the bad guy was really interacting in his email real time as him, and we can trace it down. And in this case, this person did not have multi-factor authentication turned on.
Okay.
He does now.
I'll bet. I'll bet. He's probably using the app too, right? So it's like, I guess sometimes we learn the hard way, unfortunately. But yeah, so, essentially take advantage of all these things, right? So,
so in addition to the written incident response plan, the FTC would like to see written policies and procedure. How do you destroy old computers and old data?
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole list of policies in the reg that they recommend that you should have, but destruction of data and destruction of PCs is a big one because.
So any recommendations on I'm replacing a PC, I'm getting rid of the old one? Any like steps I should take with the old PC that you would recommend before we like throw it in the garbage?
Definitely.
Or in a grinder.
Actually, taking it to the recycling center and having them drop it in the grinder is one thing.
Okay.
You want to come up with a process for securely wiping the hard drive on the device. There are definitely there's tools out there that'll do it. There's services where you can actually just pull the hard drives out and wipe them. And those I actually saw one nonprofit up in Randolph, I think, that actually takes old electronic computers, anything with a plug, I think they take, and they'll actually pull the hard drive out and give you a certificate of destruction. Okay. And that's the thing. We really want to follow that data path of the life cycle that hardware. If you destroy stuff, document that you destroyed it. Take pictures of it or get a certificate that has been destroyed. Because I don't care. You could take it outside and beat it with a hammer. Okay. Beat the hard drive with a hammer and call that destroyed. Just document it.
Okay. You got to take movies of yourself, then you can throw it on YouTube and maybe make a few bucks off of your destruction technique. Latest and greatest, right? Okay.
Now, if we're in Texas, well, we destroy them different ways.
Oh, okay, right.
Shoot them.
Firearms might be involved. Is that what you're trying to tell me? So, okay. But as long as you're destroying it and you've documented that you did it, which is interesting. So even if you're doing it yourself, you still need to document what you did.
Yeah, because you need to prove it in the future. Because if someone says, I got data off one of your old hard drives, like, wait a minute, I destroy all my hard drives. Here's documentation of everything that we destroyed and our old stuff.
Good. And that's smart.
And that's part of the risk assessment is documenting the inventory of what you have.
Okay. Good advice. Okay. So what else should we be doing?
What else should we do?
Yeah.
I think we've hit pretty much everything in that list.
Is that the 9 steps?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we kind of combined them as we were talking, right? So
yeah, we tend to combine some of them when I present. Having that incident response plan and knowing who to call. That's really the big one. And I've got the checklist that we've been using.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's a great wrap up. So we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances here with Bob Michie, and we're talking about cybersecurity. So we went through kind of the basics of the things that we need to do for this June 9th deadline, which is really just intelligent security, assessing, getting the insurance in place, taking the steps necessary to protect yourself, and doing the proper training with yourself and your employees to make sure that they know the initial upfront, like what they should be doing, and then the ongoing monitoring, which is a huge thing. I know in my world, monitoring is the biggie. You can always set things up, put the greatest plan in the world in place, but once life starts, things change, and you just need to be ongoing monitoring and making sure that you're keeping up with the reality of what's going on. Same thing with the security world. The bad actors are getting smarter, so we need to stay on top of it and get smarter too. So what other advice do you have for everybody out there who has data, which is all of us, and maybe has a business and needs to kind of protect things?
Nobody's got a shortage of data. So we actually spend a lot of time working with law firms and CPAs. And I've been talking to several CPAs over the past couple of weeks about the FTC regs. And it was pretty funny that several of the CPAs I talked to hadn't heard about it at all. Yet there's an impending deadline right after tax season for them.
Right. That's all they want to hear is another deadline, right?
Yeah, another deadline. But the comment from them was, why didn't the IRS tell us about this?
Because they're not the FTC, right?
Because they're not the FTC. The FTC is trying to protect the consumers. The IRS is trying to collect money.
Right. Different missions, exactly.
And so the funny thing is, looking through some of the FTC regs, if the CPA has been diligent about doing everything that the IRS wants them to do, there's not a whole lot of additional work to do. But because when they sign up to e-file with the e-filing process, there's a checkbox in there. I obviously haven't done it myself, but I've been told there's a checkbox there that says that you're complying with all the IRS regs for securing the client data. One of those is actually creating written incident response plans or written information security plan, and a lot of people don't have it. So yeah, we do have the June 9th deadline coming soon. This is not something that can be implemented overnight,
right?
But at least let's get it started. Doing nothing is worse.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, I think hopefully there'll be a little bit, as long as you're taking action and moving in the right direction, you would hope that they'll give you a little bit of leniency, but you can't guarantee it. So do as much as you can before the 9th. Well,
we can't guarantee that no one's going to get a data breach either.
Right. Well, that's the other thing of it. You want to be ready regardless.
We actually, we're here to help people manage and mitigate that risk, but no way, if anyone comes and says we're going to absolutely stop it, well, the only thing we're going to stop it is use the pencil and paper in the room and close the door.
Okay.
But
so we have to pull out the quill pens again.
There you go. So, right. I know you got one of the things we worked with on one of the things that came in, was it last February on security team was the team got a call from a CPA firm looking for a pen test, which is kind of weird. A penetration test to see what's happening, to see what would happen or what vulnerabilities they might have. And it's kind of weird because, tax season for a CPA, they don't want to do anything but taxes.
Yeah, they're pretty busy.
So,
yeah.
So the team dug a little deeper and figured out that the reason they were calling was because their e-filing status had been shut down because the IRS someone was using their accounts.
Oh my goodness.
And what happened was an email got compromised at the company. And every day when the CPA went to log in or e-file, he had to reset his password.
Oh.
Because the night before, the bad guys were getting in and using his email account to change the password to refile.
Oh my goodness.
So there were hundreds of accounts that were e-filed on their behalf, and it just turned into a really bad day.
That sounds awful. Because I'm assuming they're after things like refunds.
They were after things like refunds.
Okay. So they're redirecting the refunds and putting the new ABA and the new account numbers and all this kind of good stuff in there. So
absolutely. So
instead of your happy client getting their refund, your unhappy client saying, "Where's my refund?"
And if the bad guys do it soon enough, they file early and file often.
Right.
They're getting those filings.
Because that happens pretty quickly. I mean, the IRS is pretty good at doing these refunds. So you better act fast, right?
You better act fast because most people drag their feet to file their taxes, and when they go to file, oh, you've already filed.
Yeah, that would be a very bad day.
So, but yeah, can you imagine? But from a CPA perspective, from a business perspective, telling your client you can't file today because you can't access the IRS.
Right.
So, short story. Make it a short story. They had to go through and do a mitigation and incident response to actually prove that they've secured their data in a better way to actually get back into the IRS systems.
Okay. Were they able to go back and stop these returns from being sent to the wrong direction?
That I don't know. I didn't get that deep into what was actually happening on the business side there, but it's just
that's not bad.
It's just so easy, especially using something like we talked earlier about email, using email as your multi-factor.
Okay. So email is out for multi-factor, text messaging is out for multi-factor. Use the authentication app. We'll just keep saying that, right?
Always where possible, and encrypt your data.
And encrypt the data, right? That's the hard drive encryption, right? Because a lot of people don't realize you can encrypt the data on the hard drive, right?
You can definitely encrypt the data on the hard drive. The other piece that people don't realize how easy it is for the bad guys to really get access to a system once you click that link or open that Word document.
Okay.
And these protections are meant. The monitoring pieces are meant to watch for things like this. But right before the last live demo I did before COVID was it was a what the hacker sees when you click on that link demonstration live.
Okay. Oh.
So I had two PCs. We had two PCs in the room, and I did a demo of what would happen if you clicked on it. Then someone would open up the Word document, and then over on the other computer, I could access the documents. I could turn the camera on without and turn that little light doesn't mean a whole lot. We can turn that off, so you can actually sit there and record it.
Oh, you can turn the light off, so that doesn't help you.
Nope. I like
the little thing that has a little slider where you can just slide it over the camera.
I've seen a lot of laptops come back with postage stamps on them.
Right.
Over the camera.
I remember seeing a picture of, who was it? I think it was Mark Zuckerberg used to have a piece of tape over his camera. They showed
or a Band-Aid, yep.
Yeah, something over the camera because he figured old tech. I mean, here's this tech guy and he's using he's using the basics, right? Sometimes the basics work better than anything, right?
Now the laptops have built-in slides to cover the camera or turn the mic off. But
right. Which is So, but most computers don't have that, so you got to rely on protecting yourself. So it's almost like immediate. It sounds like. I mean, once you click on the link, boom,
it was immediate. So she clicked on the link. She opened the Word document. It wasn't even a link. So in this case,
by opening the Word document. She opened
the Word document. The Word document reached out over the internet and called home and said, "I'm here. What do you want me to do?"
Wow.
So these guys have really incredible tools. And I ended the presentation with the question. I was like, everyone's heard of keyloggers, but have you ever seen one?
Okay.
A keylogger will record all your keystrokes.
Right.
And this is why we don't want people using home computers to access business resources, because we don't know what's on them.
Right. That's true.
What did the kids download last night? What other things got into it? And in this, if the bad guys have access to the computer, they can see the screen.
Okay.
And the keys.
So if you're a business owner or has remote employees, you should have those computers protected as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So not just your ones in the office, but anybody who's accessing it. So I assume there's a way to make sure that you don't let them access unless they have the proper security in place. If they're
right. So we want to deploy business class computers to the home users and manage them appropriately with corporate level firewall protections.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But back to the keylogger.
Okay.
So I said, no one's seen it. Would you like to see one? So I told the assistant that I had there. It was it was one of our clients, and I was like, I prepped her to do it. So she went to QuickBooks Online. I said, put in your username, put in a username and a password, but don't hit return.
Okay.
And then I turned around and hit return and popped the password up on the screen that she just keyed.
Okay.
She jumped out of her chair.
I'll bet.
And I had told her ahead of time we were going to do it. She didn't really believe it was going to happen, and it was that quick. It wasn't even that she had to hit submit or anything. The actual keystrokes.
Just by actually pressing the keys themselves.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, so they're pretty smart.
These guys have nothing but time on their side, and these are organized businesses.
Right.
And in fact, they're so smart. You look at Salesforce.com and all these other places. They're software as a service. Well, now we can buy hacking as a service.
Hacking as a service.
Hacking as a service.
Okay.
And they will actually split the ransomware with the person that gets them infected.
So if I break into, what was it, Atlanta or someplace, that didn't they shut down like the whole city or something at one point, or I forget what they did. It was Atlanta somewhere, some large government entity. And it took them a while. I think they took them a while to get everything back up and running. So it happens. So even these we hear about the big ones, but I think what's important is that even these small businesses have a lot of vulnerability because they know there's money there too. I mean, a small business owner, they know that these things have decent amount of assets in these checking and saving, these accounts. So they go after them.
And you actually hit it right on the head. People say, I don't have anything that the business wants, that the bad guys want. Everybody listening to this has a bank account. That's what the bad guys want.
Right. So by logging in on the keystrokes, like you just pointed out, they can get whatever they want. So any final words of wisdom before we sign off today? It's pretty awesome. My final words always are: make sure you've got multi-factor authentication, and to comply with the FTC regs, make sure you follow the rules, and we're here to help. All right, and June 9th. Thanks again for coming on, Bob. You're listening to Master Your Finances. Have a wonderful day.
That was this week's episode of Master Your Finances with Kurtis Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to expand your knowledge in building and managing your wealth. Missed an episode? No worries. You can subscribe to a free weekly episode of Master Your Finances to listen to on your favorite podcasting platform. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University.